so here we go. So everybody has a brush that's dipped in water, and it's the big one, and now we're ready to paint. Generally in acrylic paintings, you paint from the furthest away to the closest away, background, medium ground, foreground, which is what we're going for. Remember, we have light blues and dark blues, so let's get out the light blue first and put a little bit on your brush. So y'all gonna find out what smidgens and little bits and things like that mean. But you're gonna put enough paint on your brush like this. And if you can't figure it out by just looking and getting a feel, that's normal. You're not gonna be able to figure it out. But know that every time you need to go back and get more paint, it's easy. Just put your brush into the paint, pick up a little bit more. If you get too much, it's not going to be a problem because you can just wipe it off on your palette, okay? So with the light blue, once you get it on there, if you don't have enough in a minute, you just go back into the cup and get some more, okay? Now, you'll see if we use light blue out of the tube, it is way too heavy, dark, solid, dreary. So we're going to immediately go to white and start putting that in. So as soon as you put a little bit of blue, a small amount on your palette, I want you to go don't go right in the middle, but go over to the side and get a scoop of white out, okay? Get a scoop of white and put it right here by the blue. Don't go into the blue, because if you do, all of your white is going to turn blue. So put your white here and move it around a little bit, and now you have light blue. So you want to have a light blue pile and a dark blue pile to get you going. Now, do it one more time. Go in and get a little bit more white. Get another scoop. And this time, put it a little bit further over, away from the other blue. So now you're going to have a dark blue, a medium blue, and then you're going to have a light blue. Okay? See, every time you mix more white with it, it gets lighter and lighter. And that's what's going to happen as you paint. So now as you begin to paint, this is the color that you're going to get, and that is pretty close to what we're looking for. Now that I've brushed it on here and I see what it looks like, now I can go back in if I need to, and I can get more white and see, I can mix it. So my goal is for you to make a sky and you to have a variety of blues in there. We're not going to mix one color like blue to paint with. You started off with a little bit darker on your brush, and then we added more white and more white. So what's on your brush right now, I want you to just push like this on the canvas and streak across like you're making like an X, where you just sort of take and make like a 3-inch kind of stroke. That 3-inch stroke, just pull it across, go from side to side or top to bottom. As long as you keep your brush stroke going in a vertical position, it's going to look like sky, and it will not look like the sky is going to fall. And that's what happens if you start going vertical. If you make streaks going up and down, then it changes everything visually. So right now we want brush strokes that go across. And once you get sort of a rhythm going, you'll enjoy looking and saying, oh, I made a cloud and I didn't even know I made a cloud. But literally these white gestures of movement coming right across here can definitely give you the idea of having those clouds, or it being a little bit lighter around the area that we're going to call the bushes and the trees that are the furthest away from the viewer that's looking at this painting. So that's it for the sky. That's literally all we're going to do. Once you get down to the area that we are going to start making tree foliage, we just want you to take one more little scoop of white if you need it, depending on how much white you've been picking up. And everything is relative to the amount you pick. But once you go across this way, literally you can cover your paint lines. Those are done with paint markers. So you don't have to worry about if you cover them up necessarily. But once you get there, you can stop, and then we're going to move on and start some of the water. While you got the blue and the white on your brush, you're going to start putting in some places, and I'm going to show you where the water is going to be, okay? So we're going to skip this little spot in here where we're going to put our bushes, and I want you to come down about almost halfway down your picture where you begin to see this shape that looks like a Y. And in that space, what I want you to do is do exactly the same thing you did up in the cloud area or the sky area. I just want you to flip that brush back and forth, back and forth. I want you to come in and get that water going in that area so you will know where the water is. Now remember, we hadn't even used dark blue yet. We just keep adding a little bit of the water color lighter now, and where we need it to show darker, we can get that in later. Right now I'm doing basically what we call an underpainting. We're developing a space for everything to be, and then we'll go back and actually work on it in detail if we need to. So find your little Y, and then the Y at the end of the Y, Y's off again. So you've got this Y on the end of this big Y. So go on out a little bit, and we draw a lot of pictures a week, so they're all not identical, even though they're pretty close. Just watch your shape and see if you've got a Y, and then on the end of it, the Y tears off again. If not, you can make one, or not, and then your water will go a little different direction, and that's fine. So at the continuation of this little Y that's right in the middle of the canvas, if you notice, you've got a couple of little places where we've got little pools of water. So what we want to do is take that same light color blue, we want to go in and put it in this little spot. And at the end of this Y, we want to put it in that little spot. We've got little oval shapes where the water's piled up. And then we want to continue it here. You've got a space just about in the middle of the canvas on this left-hand side. And you can see just a couple of little lines give you an area where your water's actually going to be enclosed with all the marsh grasses. So I'm continuing to add just paint, sometimes a little more white, maybe even next time a little more blue as you want to put in it. But we're going to go to the next body of water that you have in your painting. And if you'll look at this, you can see on this right-hand side in this corner, this is where the island is. And everything behind there in this shape, starting right here above that marsh line, is water. So literally you're just going to come in that area and do the same. We want all those brush strokes to be vertical. We want them to flow from side to side. We want sometimes them to be lighter and sometimes for them to be darker, so it doesn't feel flat. So as you go and pick up more paint, just make sure that you're picking up white one time and blue one time. And as you're streaking it, then you'll get that layering going in and the look of water, which we want. You can go over your lines as much as you want to. It's not going to create a problem either way, because there will either be water there or there will be grass there. Okay, so everything eventually will be covered up. But we're running the water off the page on this right-hand side and moving it across, and then that space is done so that we can get ready to go to the Y that's going to tear off from that line. So this is probably the bottom leg of the Y, and then now we're going to make the top line, and you can see that we're doing that by using these small shapes. They're not really joined together, but we are now, and then we're going to put the grass in between it later. So you can see I had 3 little shapes that went together to make the basic pool of the water, or where it's pulling up most. And then all we have to do is put grass in between some of those places to make it look like it's more grassy than it is water. We're going to do that a few more times in places where there is the smallest amount of water. If you'll notice up here where this Y is, we've got another shape, we've got another line, And basically it's just a place for the water to be trapped. We will put grass around it, but that gives us just a place so that we can tell that the water's open. And if you don't have a line here or there, you can make one in the same space that I'm making it. But you'll barely be able to see it by the time we get the grasses on there. But it's good to have it in that area. Now, we haven't used the dark blue, and we're not going to use much, but this is your opportunity to understand what a smidgen is. We're going to take the dark blue, and we're going to put it where we're going to take our big brush, and we're going to put it in just enough that we get a smidgen on the corner of the brush. So it's literally the smallest amount of paint that you can pick up on a brush without, having too much on there. So literally, to see how much you have, lay the blue down like that and see. Wipe off even some of it, but you can see the blue that you have. This is the dark blue, even though it's very bright. So what we want to do in some of the places that we have is we actually want to blend that in to change up the depth of the water a little bit. So if you will start with me on the bottom right hand side and go up under where the grass is going to start meeting it here, and just pull some brush strokes of the darker blue right in on top of the lighter blue. Literally, you're just going to go in and put a few strokes of color up in the section at the very top, and then you're going to do the same thing on the Y shape that's at the top. Every time you make a stroke of the dark blue, you just about have to go get more dark blue, because you've got so much of the light blue on your brush that the dark blue is disappearing. And that's fine, it's a natural thing to do. But we want a little bit of that dark color in a few places. And then literally what we're going to do is we're going to take the little bit that's left on our brush where the dark blue is mixed in, and in here with just a few brush strokes, we're just going to hit the canvas just a little bit with the color so that you can see it, but it doesn't take over. It gives the little bit of movement that the water needs, or a little bit of depth, or it creates an interesting color. And there are all kind of good reasons to put the dark blue in there. So go to the bottom one first, and then let's move on up to the top one. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go towards the top of the Y shape first and put just a few marks of the dark blue. It's very uneven and very just hit and miss kind of strokes that you're pulling across. So it doesn't have to go everywhere by any means. Just some of the color just spread out like 1-inch little brush strokes to fill it in. And then I want you to take whatever little bit you have on your brush, I want you to dip it in the water, and I want you to go over and take the water and put it into the blue like that, so that the blue mixes up with the color that you have on your brush, just ever so slightly. So this is a smidgen of dark blue, and the light blue that's already on your brush, you didn't change colors, you just put water on it. That's the ingredient that makes this work. So you've got water and you've got light blue and dark blue on your brush. Now I want you to come in right across the top of your sky, and I want you just to barely hit it with the dark blue, just a smidgen, just barely touch it, and then you can see that that color is darker across the very top. Make your brush work by taking it and pushing that color into the other color. Don't do it any further than 1 inch down. Keep it at the very top and just put some of that dark blue color in. And then take your brush now that has the light paint on it at the top of the brush. The dark blue is still at the toe of the brush. So all you have to do is lay down your brush sideways like this, and then the light blue mixes right into the dark blue, and you have the dark blue in the sky, okay? So that is where we're going with our water. Now we're ready to move on to the area up here where we have our bushes and trees. So what I want you to do with that is to keep your same brush. You don't have to wash it or do anything to it. I just want you to go, and I want you to bring your turquoise green and your medium green so that you can add some of that to your palette. I'm going to literally go in with my blue brush, and I'm picking up that dark turquoisey green, and I'm going to lay it here, and then I'm picking up, just a small amount of it. Remember how black it looks? That's fine. We're picking up just a little bit of the turquoise green, and then right beside it, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the other green that's called medium green. So now those are sort of side by side on the palette. Just getting a little bit up there for us to play with to get. So it's the turquoise green, a smidgen of the medium green, and then we're good to go. So now you've got a little bit of both of those colors on your brushes, okay?
Which one is the medium? What color?
The medium green is the one that looks like green grass.
Like Kelly.
Kelly green. And then the turquoise is the one that's very black, that's a blue green that looks really dark. So you get a smidgen of each one of those. If you picked up black by mistake, just move that cup out of the way, and you're good to go. What I want you to do literally in this space that is between the bush line and the horizon line, the first thing I want you to do is use the toe of your brush, and I just want you to go in by pushing the paint into the line and making it very wavy, curvy, zigzaggedy, a way that you can tell that it is not an even or straight line. They are bushes. But I only want you to go to here. When you get to the larger tree, we're not going to do that right now, so just keep that reserved for another minute. All we're going to do is go over to, from the left to the right, about 3/4 of the way till you get to the big trees, and we're just going to stop.
And are we just using the mixture of the two, or just the green?
Both greens mixed together on the brush. You've got to, because you picked up both of them, you have both colors on your brush, so that way you can use both of them. One's going to take over a little bit more, depending on which side of the brush you exert more pressure with, or which one you put more picked up more paint with, okay? But we picked up the turquoise green, we put it on the palette, then we picked up medium green, we put it on the palette, we have both on the brush. Now we're gonna go into our line by just taking our brush and moving it across until we create a tree line. And we're going about 3/4 of the way over. So now once our tree line is done, we're going to look at what we're going to call the grass or the line up underneath it. So now we're going to go and we're just going to pick up turquoise on our brush now. That's the dark blue that looks almost black, but it is the turquoise green. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to actually put the horizon line in so that we have a ground. But once again, it is not even. Now I tricked the brush because I turned it upside down. When I was going this way, I wanted wavy, curvy, and I wanted it bushy. Now I need it straighter, and I need to go it into the island like this. So I'm just pulling it across so that I can fill up that space. Now you don't have to be even or neat or anything right now. Just get it covered, and then we're going to build up the area as soon as we get a little map made of where we're going.
But just go as far as the trees go.
Until you get to the big area. And you'll see we're changing over when we get to the big area a little bit. We're going to change our colors. Those aren't going to be quite as dark, and we're going to do that next. So with the turquoise and the medium green already on your brush, if you will pick up a smidgen of the yellow green So I went right to the yellow green. I put a little bit on the corner of my brush. This is yellow green. Pick up a little bit on the corner of the brush. And once you get the yellow green, now we're going to start building some of the bushes over here that are taller on the right hand side. If you'll notice, looking at your inspiration piece, you have 3 basic big bushy things. So what we're going to do, if you'll start here and just go around and make yourself an area where the bush is going to be. You see your horizon line, but don't worry about going to the bottom. We're going to make ground in a minute. Right now we're making a place for the bush, okay? Then you can see you've got another hump, and we're just going around and making a shape for the next tree to go. It's pretty solid in there, but now be careful about this one, because this one I want you to get the first one or the last one. It doesn't matter which one you do, but I want it to have a little opening in it. I want you to still see some of the blue that might be coming in. See the blue that we have in here? So what we're going to do is we're going to come up, and actually we're going to take our brush and we're going to ease the little tiny bristles around the edge so that we're going in a round motion, and we're leaving some of the blue showing. So we're filtering out the density of the bush. We're not letting it be full and heavy around this top part. We want to keep it open. So we're going to do that to the other ones in just a minute, because we're going a little bit taller. So pick up this time a little yellow. The cad yellow is the one we haven't used yet. So right now I have yellow green on my brush. So go to the cadmium yellow, that's the bright yellow. Put a smidgen on the corner. Just pick up a tad on the edge of the brush. And then I want you to go in here like this, and I want you to take the brush with the bristles, and all you're doing are making little tiny like S shapes or C shapes that just barely touch the canvas. Little C's and little S shapes that just barely touch and lighten it up. But you're leaving some opening in between the trees at the top, so the leaves don't look like they're all stuck together in a circle. So you're making a little opening for the leaves, so they look like they are thinner at the top, just the way trees are going to be grown, okay? So go over and get a smidgen of, the next color is going to be the yellow ochre. That's the one that looks gold. So while all these colors are in your brush, don't wash or wipe off anything. Get a smidgen of gold on your brush in the corner, and you're going to do the same thing to this last one. You're going to go in there and you're just going to play around with a little movement, very little, like you're making a C or an S, and just take the corner of the brush and just barely move it, so that a little bit of the paint catches on to the canvas. Now get a smidgen of that Kelly green, the medium green, and come back, and we're going to do all the trees just a little bit more with all of those little gestures of C's and S's, just little tiny smidgens of color that we're going to pick and add to the bush, so it has many different values of greens. We have yellow greens. We started off with the blue greens. Now we're going to the golden greens. So now we're getting a variety of those colors. Now we're going to actually take the smidgen of the dark blue. Remember, we haven't used it much yet, but we are going to use it now, because we're going to the deeper blue. So we're going to put a smidgen of the dark blue right on your brush without changing anything. And we're going to come in here and we're going to start filling in a little bit more of the area that we're considering the ground or the land. So a little bit more of the darker blue, but you still have all the greens and things on your brush. So we've got some dark blue. And we're going to go in and literally go into our line that we're calling the horizon line. As you notice over here on this side, it's lower than it was here. It changed up and down right here. So this one we're gonna carry over here and we're gonna stop. So you'll notice that this gold line that we have for your horizon goes over and stops. And it meets with the first one that we did. Remember the first one, we went across like this, we got here and we stopped. So these two overlap each other so that one area of the grass is meeting the other grass. But it has a little bit of space in between, just a little. If you don't get a space in between, don't worry about it now. We're going to catch that next, because this is what's going to happen next. We're actually going into the light blue next. We're getting a smidgen of the light blue that we painted with, making the sky and the water. And this time we're going to use that with a smidgen of white in it. So basically we're coming back to that original color we started with. And we're going to go into here and we're going to add more S's and C's just to pick up and change some of those greens into a lighter color. See how we're doing it a little bit lighter. And we're almost joining them together, but we're leaving a little bit of the dark color showing so that you can see that there's a difference, or that there are 3 trees instead of just one. So that light blue, and I put a smidgen of white in it, so it's this original color that we had. But it's just a little bit of the light blue that's going to pick up, and it's going to lighten up the tree just a little bit in the center of the tree. So see how I'm coming in the center? I'm doing some C's, some little S's. Over here, I'm doing a few C's and S's, just so that I can make sure that I have a little bit of the lighter color in the center. Anytime you want something to look round, if you lighten it up in the middle and leave it darker on the outside, it certainly will. Okay, now we want that to look very natural in the sense that it could be here in our space. So what we want to do is, with the green that's on your brush, I want you to go over and add a little bit more of the yellow ochre to your brush. So here's my yellow ochre. That's the color that's goldish like. And if I mix the green and the yellow ochre, you can see that it goes very greenish, but it's a golden green, okay? So we're adding yellow ochre to what's on your brush. Whatever's on your brush, get a smidgen of yellow ochre and add it in there. Mix a little bit on your palette so you have a little blend, but remember, we're not over mixing on the palette. We're doing all of our painting and mixing basically on our canvas. So now what I want you to do is I want you to take that color and I want you to go right up underneath your horizon line and just put a smidgen of a line that goes across that separates the bushy area from the grass area. But it is greener and golder. It is not bluer. So take the yellow ochre and put enough with it that you can see the difference, that you can see that golden grass color coming right out. I'm using the method where I'm taking the index finger and putting it right on the top of the brush, and I'm literally using the edge of the width of the brush just to come in and make a line. It's not straight necessarily, but it is straight-ish, but I'm just going in with yellow ochre. I'm adding a little bit more yellow ochre to the brush, and this time I'm going down just a smidgen and doing the same thing, but this time I'm showing that there's a gap in between those two layers. So literally what I'm doing is coming down and I'm going all the way across, but it's 2 levels of grass. This whole thing with the marsh is about levels. So under the right-hand side where the 3 larger trees are, now we have a turquoisey green color up underneath, and now we have a yellow golden color up underneath. Now I want you to add more yellow ochre to your brush. Keep it just the way it is. Load it with more yellow ochre. And then I also want you to add the cad yellow to it. So this is the yellow ochre and this is the cad yellow, because I want the yellow ochre to get lighter. And the only way to make it lighter is to mix the yellow with it. So now you have yellow ochre and just a smidgen of cad yellow. Without mixing too much, I want you to come in and I want you to go right up underneath where you are. We're doing the same thing across, but this time when we get to where you see that little bit of water, leave it open. And as you're painting, you're picking up yellow ochre. You're picking up only the yellows. You're not picking up any more greens. You're just picking up yellow ochre every time you move across the page. So one time I'm picking up yellow, one time I'm picking up yellow ochre, and I'm just going all the way across now till I have another band of color that's put in, and I'm closing up one little water area so I can only see a small amount of it. So now the water's in between the grasses. Now I'm picking up more yellow. This time I'm adding white to it. So now I have gold on my palette. I have yellow next to it on my palette. And now I went in and picked up a little bit of white, and now I'm mixing that up just a little bit, just one little swirl, and then I'm going back to my canvas, and this time I'm putting in yellow, but this time it is turning, the shade is changing and it is turning lighter. It has more yellow in it. It still has a very green look to it. We want it to have that first, because in a minute we want to put grass coming up from it that has more of a yellow. We're adding white to the yellow, and we're coming down with the white and yellow till we get to the place where we see more water, and we're just making strokes of color. This is more yellow, more white, mostly white with what's already on your brush is going to work. And I want you to go down just till you spot the water. And when you run into the water, turn around and keep going side to side first. Just go side to side, side to side. And then you've got one little small water puddle that's on this left-hand side. So literally you're just going to come around it. So now you can see that you've put grass all the way around the second little layer of water that we have coming in. Now, we haven't used brown yet, but we're going to pick up that. You don't have to change anything on your brush. The brown color that we're using tonight is the burnt sienna. So if you'll go in, and what you're going to do, literally you want the brown to go into the brush. So we're going to pick some of that up. We're going to go right over to the palette where we've been working and add some of the burnt sienna, just so you'll know what it looks like, and we're going to carry it on the tip of the brush. We're going to use it to actually draw lines. So if you will take the brush, the easiest way to flatten out this brush so that you can mark with it as a line, you're going to use you're not going to use the width of your brush. You're only going to use the line. So push your paint down into your palette like this, so that the brown paint is on the left and right side, or both sides of your brush, and you pretty much create a line instead of a mop. You don't want a moppy thing, okay? Now once you get that area, if you'll notice, the brown is the murky stuff that's underneath the brighter grass, and it's right around the water. So literally with the brown, we're gonna start putting in that area. So if you start on that right-hand side of your canvas and you lay the brush into the canvas and you sort of wiggle back and forth and you lay down some of the brown, you're gonna see you got a little island shape. It goes over for 4 or 5 inches until it starts curving around and going around the next bend. So we're going to go pretty much straight, even though it's sort of a zigzag back and forth. But then you'll see that you've got another area that's a little bit more on the rounded side. Now, you should, by the time you make that one mark, you've used up all the paint on the end of your brush. So now you have to go back and you have to get more paint. So you're going to flatten out the paint once again on the tip of your brush so that you're carrying just enough that you're going to paint a small line with again. And then you can get more paint. So now what you're doing is you're making a curve and you're going around the little areas. You've got a little brown line underneath your water if you can see it. If not, you're just making up an edge. It's literally the bank of where we have the water put in. So if you're not for sure where you're going, follow your water line, follow the bank. So you can see going this way, it's just like a little hill, a little mound going up and down and around. And then when you get all the way over, once again, I ran out of paint, so I'm coming back and I'm getting more brown and I'm just flattening it out so I can make sure that I have something to draw just with the line of my brush. And I'm going to carry that all the way across the painting. So now I have really the first brown linear mark that really divides that canvas in two. So it's just with burnt sienna, even though I had a lot of other colors in my brush. And sometimes when I push down, I did see some of the colors come out. Now, with the brown that's on your brush, we're going to do that one more time. So go over, pick up a little bit more brown, and then flatten it out with your brush. And let's find some more places where the brown is identified up against the bank. So the water that we made down towards the bottom, we can definitely see that one. So that's the one that we're going to look at with the edging. This area, if you'll look at it like where this water comes in and goes around, remember at the top is where the brown is, because that's where the grass grows up from that murky area. I'm putting the brush in and I'm just agitating it or moving it back and forth, right across that water line. When I run out of paint, I'm going back and I'm putting water on the brush and I'm flattening it out. And then I'm going to continue and I'm going to once again take the brown line all the way across the canvas. Now there's another one that's up underneath it that's smaller, but we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring my brush back and forth, and literally I'm going around so that I'm actually pretty much circling that little island. You can see that the brush stroke went all the way under the water. And now we're going to go under the water again, so more brown on your brush. This time I'm going to put a smidgen of black in there with it so it begins to get a little bit darker. So with the dark brown and black, I'm going to go up underneath this area and I am making the murky part of the water very visible so that you can see it. I would like for you to stop when you get to the end of the island. If you don't know where the end of the island is, just don't cross over your water. Just take your brush with brown and black and go up underneath the water, but don't cross the water right now. Okay, we have a few more places where we're going to have the intersection of water and grass. So as you look at the space, you can see here is the first section we put in, and then we have water. Now, all this section in the middle is going to be basically a big island, but it is divided up one time, and the one divide that it does have literally goes from the middle of the canvas over to the place where this water is right here, where it stops, where it meets. So literally you're going to take the brown and you're going to cut that section into, it's not really half, but you are dividing it. And that's with brown. It has a little black in it. Of course, it has some blue coming in now. But you're going across that, and so we know that there is a layer of marsh here, and there's a layer of marsh here. There's another layer of marsh here. So every time you get another section of marsh, it has to be divided. So this is brown. It has a dot of black in it. And now we're going to carry on across just a little bit. We're going to leave a little bit of a space open in the middle. If you don't, that's all right. We'll just cover it with grass in a minute. But literally, you're going to continue the line over so that you divide the space into thirds again. But this time, you can see that you go in between the two water puddles that you made earlier. So you're going to scoot right in between the two water puddles. And that'll be another dark line. Brown, a little bit of black. Got a few more to find. This is like mapping, but you're setting up, so it'll be so easy to paint once we get this taken care of. All right, so up here you have a little pond area. Down over here you can see you have a little pond area. And then you've got the grassy areas where the canvas hasn't been painted yet. But you've got this water. Remember the Y shape that we put in earlier? So literally what we're going to do is we're going to put the brown up above the areas where the water meets the grass, so that it can have a place to grow. You can anchor the ground. You can anchor the island so it doesn't float away. So that's the land mass right above the area where you put in the two little water puddles, the little oval shapes of water. Now, once the grass grows a little higher over here, you're not going to see it as much. You can see it here because the land and the water is exposed, but we're not going to divide the canvas in half because this grass comes up over it and this area stops where the bend is in the Y, okay? So where it's bent around, you don't need any more. So I have brown and a smidgen of black. And I've got one more area that I want to address so that you'll have all the spaces ready. So if you will look at the place where, you've got this puddle of water, and right above it where you've got that small little area of water left, we have a little bit of grass that's coming right from that area. And a little bit here. So it's always on this top part of the water. So now you can see the pattern. If you haven't seen it yet, you've got water, and then the murky sand. You've got the water, the murky sand, the water, the murky sand, water, murky sand, water, murk, water, murk. Okay? So that's how you can see if you've got all of them. If you don't, we can always put them in, so don't worry about it. Now, the one that's the furthest away that we can hardly see, we need a smidgen of a line that's very, very thin. So the one up here that we haven't addressed yet, that little small one, just give yourself a little mark of dark being behind that water or up above it. And the same thing above this one. Just a little brown line so that you can have grass growing up in that space. Okay, basically the white canvas that's still exposed is going to be a grassy color. So we're going to use the big brush at first just to put in the location of everything, and then we'll start building up the layers. So with that, I would like for you to get cad yellow and put it on your palette. And right next to it, I would like for you to get the yellow ochre and put a pile right next to it. I laid it right in the middle of the palette where all that blue's already dry. Of course, it'll be fine. If you need a new spot, you can get a new sheet of paper if you want one. But right now, that works fine. Now I want you to get a smidgen or half the amount of that yellow green, because this is the light green, okay? This is the one that's got mostly yellow. There you go. Now you've got all three colors on your brush: gold, yellow, and yellow green. You've got yellow, yellow ochre, and yellow green. Green's the one that's lime green looking. Yep, lime green. So let's see what happens when I brush across with those colors. If you'll watch what happens right here. See how I'm laying it down? See how my gold comes out, my green comes out? Okay, so that's what I want to happen so that we don't have one patch of color. So now I'm going to go right back over. I'm out of paint. That's, I loaded my brush and now I'm out. So I've got to load it again. I'm getting yellow. I'm getting a little bit of brown, a little bit of the gold and a little bit of the green. So it's cad yellow, yellow ochre, and a little yellow green. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to use it to go in and fill up this bottom space where my grass is going to be. So as I'm painting, I'm not over mixing. I'm leaving those colors out so that they blend or overlap, but I don't mix them that much. I just pull about a 2-inch stroke across so that I begin to fill up that space. So all the white space that's there now on that bottom is now filled up. I don't have any of that island exposed. Okay, the next island we're going to do is right above it. So right above that space, you're gonna go in. If you turn your brush sideways like this and just go across and lay those colors in, it'll fit right in the space and you can get the canvas covered, which is all we're doing right now. We're not really making grass, even though we're using some of the grass colors. Now begin adding more yellow green to your brush. You had a lot of gold down here, but I want you to pick up next time more yellow green. And I want you to do the same thing in this area. I just want you to come in. And each time you go pick up a new color or a color to put on your brush, I want it to be a little greener in this space. So you can see the yellow green coming right out. We're just laying the paint down with the wide part of the brush so you just fill in the space. Now, underpainting is literally a way that you can fill up the canvas with the colors that you want, and then you come back and build a texture on top of. So that's a great way to do this, because when you build these marshes with a paint brush, you literally have to figure out, how the water moves and where the grass is. So once you get this step done, then you can really let the creative juices take over as far as how you begin to paint some of the brush strokes and making the grass. But right now I'm just sort of picking up those three colors, greens and oranges, greens and the yellow ochre and the cad yellow, and putting that underpainting in. So my canvas is covered. Okay, let's change up a little bit when we get to this one. That one we're going to add something different to it. We haven't added much white in that, or the as much yellow. So this time, instead of adding more green, let's add more white and yellow. So it changes it just a little bit. So a little bit more of the cad yellow and a little bit more of the white.
And what part of the, and the upper one?
Yeah, the part that's raised right in the middle. So it has, that way we can tell that this layer is behind this layer. And now we're almost there, because we've got these small little islands left right across the middle. So just with a little bit more yellow on your brush, you can go in and literally just going to fill that space in. Just use your brush to edge in the color. Little more yellow. Sometimes if you want a hint of green or a little white, you can certainly put that in. And we're going to start right back at the very beginning so that we can make these bushes. So since we have the dark established in here, now we're going to do a medium and a light value to go in that direction. So I would like for you to get the medium green, the Kelly green, pick up a little bit of that. You can put it right here where you had it last time, because I'm sure all that's dried. We've got the big round brush. We're going with the big round brush so that we can mix. So we're mixing Kelly green. Now, if you will get a smidgen of the brown, because we want these to look natural. I'm gonna put the brown right beside the green.
And this is the bright green? Okay.
Medium green, the Kelly looking green.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And
A
what-
smidgen of brown.
Okay.
And then what we're gonna do first is we're gonna come in here and we're going to use the roundness of the brush at the end. We're gonna choke up on the brush so that you're actually holding the metal or right above it. And literally we're gonna come in and we're going to make our brush just dance right across the top of this area. And we're gonna come out over the green that we painted a while ago just a little bit so that we don't stay in the line. And we're creating some openings that we had not created earlier. We want it to look open and airy along the top. So this is the medium green. It has a dot of brown in it. And we're just going over and we're just letting the roundness of the brush pretty much just dance right across the top so it feels like it is a little bushier and very uneven, and there's light or the possibility of some of the sky even showing through in some of the places because it's uneven. Now, once you get this far across, you're going to do the exact same thing to the part that's on this left-hand side. We're going right in. We're just dancing along a little bit with a little medium green and a little brown. We're not filling up the whole space. We're just dancing up across the turquoise green. So some of the turquoise is still there. We're just sort of skimming along and picking up a few light leaves that we're accenting just a little bit with a lighter color. Now, with what you already have on your brush, if you'll get a little bit of that yellow ochre on your brush, the yellow ochre is going to be right here beside the green and the brown because both of them are on your brush. You can see that the green is getting more golden. And if all your green's gone and your brown is gone, put a little bit more on it and then add the gold to it because we want another layer of leafy stuff to start coming in here. We're going to make that, we're going to let the brush just dance right across where we just made it. It's almost like we're making another layer of the bushy stuff, but this time it's golden instead of brownish. And that way we get a sense of the roundness coming in because we do have a lighter color. Just every so often, just go in and let the color come into the green and mix with the stuff that's on your brush. So we just dancing around just a little bit. Now we're going to change a little bit. We've got the browner part at the top. We've got the golden in the middle a little bit. Now we're going to put a little bit of the turquoisey green on the brush, and we're going to darken it right along the edge with the turquoisey color. Just a little bit, but you've got to keep some of the medium green on there. You don't want to have exclusively one color. But as soon as you put the turquoisey green across the bottom, you can see how it sets up the space for the tree. It anchors it to the ground so it's not floating. Now this time, as you go across, you're going to take the turquoisey color and you're going to go up sometimes like this with the turquoise, and you're going to actually take the turquoise into the light color. See how I'm making these little circles of the darker color? So they just go around and make bushes because you're taking the darker turquoise and you're just putting it around throughout all of that space, and now you get a collection of bushes. The turquoise just blends right into that gold, And as you go circle, 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 remember the S's and the C's that we did earlier? Well, you can do some of that same thing with the turquoise. Just begin putting it in at the bottom first, and then round it out right through the center. And, you know, by the time you make about 15 of those circle-like shapes in there that aren't true circles, but circle-y, then you have bushes that you need. Now, when we get to the other side and start making the other 3 bushes that are larger, we're going to follow the same kind of color patterns because they're similar, except these are going to be lighter. Now, you have turquoise and green on your brush, so we're going to start with that. Take a little bit of that, and I'm going to put my index finger on the top again so I'm not too tight. And this is going to be circular again. I'm going to go right through the bush, and I'm literally going to make like a C shape, like half of a circle. I'm making a C shape, like half of a circle. It's just pushed right into all 3 of the bushes. So we get a sense of there being depth in the bush with the dark. I just went right to the center, made a C on all 3 areas. Now go get yellow green, and this time you're going to take the yellow green, you're going to do the same thing, except this time you're placing it on the outside of that C. So here's the yellow green. I'm going right outside the C shape and just putting another C around it like it's encasing it. So that light green just comes in and picks up right where the dark left off. Now, add a smidgen of white to the yellow green. And we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to take yellow, green, we're going to put a little white in it. And now these 3 C shapes that we have, we started with the dark green, we went to the middle green. Now with the light green, we're making the same C shape that comes around, and it lightens up everything that's on that left-hand side just a little bit, so you can see where that light's coming from. So it's just a smidgen. You're not really making C's, but you're going sort of in that direction. You want the bush to look round. You want the light to be coming in on that side, and you're touching it with a little light yellow green that's mixed in with the other colors that are on your brush. Okay, now we're going to start building up a little bit more of the island or the groundwork right up underneath those bushes. So now we're going to take, with what's on your brush, put a smidgen of black and a smidgen of brown. Now you've got light green, so this is going to turn a little bit on the grayish side. And if it doesn't, we're going to make it happen for you really quick. Like you've got a dot of black on your brush and a dot of brown, and now add a dot of white so it lightens up just enough so you can see it turn gray, but not much. It's like rocky kind of color. So take that and use the toe of your brush to come in, and literally you're making, if you go from the outside of the canvas toward the inside, you're going to follow the line that we put in a while ago, and you're putting that ground-ish rocky black color up underneath where the turquoise color was a while ago. So it's black and brown. It's got a smidgen of white in it, and we're going out to make the island, the ground of the island, so you can see it right up underneath the bushy turquoisey color. So I'll do it again so you can see it. We're going to start here. I'm going to add a little bit more white to it than I need just so that you can see what's happening. Here is a little lighter gray. I'm just taking the brush, dancing it up and down, up and down, up and down, making it look rocky and islandy looking, and going out and extend about an inch or two beyond where this last tree is. Now, I want you to take your brush and I want you to round your brush out like that on your palette so you're literally taking the paint off of your palette. I don't want you to carry too much paint, so I want you to literally just roll it out like this and deposit it on your palette, because with that color, I want you to come in and put some of that in the tree to make it look like it could be stems or branches or colors in the leafy bushy stuff. So in this area, the same brownish gray color with a lot of gray in it, just put that color into the bushes from the center over towards the right, a little bit where we didn't put any color in a while ago. Because the dark is on that right hand side and the light's coming in on this left hand side. Okay, while you have black and white and brown on your brush, we're going to play in another space that's down here. We will want some of that same color. If you'll notice, we've got a little fat or space with the land coming in right here in the very center of the canvas. A while ago we painted it brownish. We're not trying to cover it up, but right now we are putting some of the grayish color in it, on it, around it, among the brown. You can leave some of the brown showing, but we want it to have enough of the gray in it that you can recognize it, that you can see it. Just splotches, little splotches of color. We're going to do the same thing across here, just a little bit. You can see the difference between the browns and the grays.
This is with the grayish color?
It sure is. This is with black and brown and white. So it turns grayish, but not too gray, not too black, not too white, just right in the middle.
And then you're just kind of hitting some of the spots?
That's correct. Now, go up where we didn't put a brown line while ago at the base of the murky stuff right in here, and let's get that filled in with a grayish paint. We can notice that we are closer to the viewer here, so it is a little darker in this area than it is in this one, just a little bit. So it's black, brown, a little white, and we're going in or above this water. We're going right before the grass starts. We're going to make an island-like line that's going to come in and go across. And it's going to divide this space in half so it looks like that Y that we talked about having with the water earlier. But the little island goes right in the middle with this grayish color. You just have a little line that comes right across where the Y is. Now we've got a couple of other places that we're going to put the gray. Dip your brush in the water just a little bit with the round brush and round it like that so you can get a little bit more of a point. We're going a little bit smaller as we go back. We're not using a smaller brush yet, but we will soon. But go in here, there's another island that we need to do that with. It's in this area where we didn't mark it a while ago. You can see right up underneath the island. It's in between that Y shape that we made earlier. Go right up underneath the island part and come across with the gray. And if you've got a brownish color in there, you're just gonna run right into the brown. That's perfect. One more time with the gray. We're gonna come into this area on this left-hand side. We've got the brown line that divides the canvas in half with brown. We're gonna break it up a little bit and make this on this left-hand side a little on the gray side. So just a little, add a little width to it, make it a little bit wider, and don't go all the way across. Just go one segment, one little section with a grayish color. That will help everything look so natural when we get the other grassy colors put in. Okay, so let's get rid of the gray now. So if you'll wash your brush, keep the roundness, keep the big round brush, but wash out the gray. So with your big brush, if you will take the medium green and put the cadmium yellow with it, that's the cad bright yellow. So you get a yellow green, but it's not as bright as the yellow green that's already made right out of the tube, okay? So it's yellow green, but it's more natural. It's just yellow and the middle green color, the medium green. So with this yellow green, we're going to actually sort of practice making some grasses that are shorter, and then we're going to make some that are longer. Okay, so we'll take turns in figuring out how we're going to actually put those in. Now, to do this, I feel like that if you could if you could manipulate your canvas a little bit as far as turning it, it's going to help you. I'm going to pick mine up and show you how we're going to make some grasses. And the way that it's easiest to do it is with a rotation of your wrist that just comes like from here to there, like from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock kind of thing, is what we're going to go with. And so it's just easier to do it if you turn your canvas sideways, since the grasses are growing up this way. It's a lot harder to go. I still have the same one. It's still the round brush. But with green, you'll be able to see this, and then we're going to change and do a lot of different colors in it. But this will be one that you'll be able to see. Right in the middle of the canvas, we're going to start, and then we're going to make some that are smaller and then some that are taller, okay? This will sort of be the middle value. So with your painting, if you would literally turn it this direction so that the sky is on the right, we're going to take the brush and lay it, and we're going to use the point of it so it can start building grasses for us. These grasses are going to be in several layers because of where we're painting. In this particular section, if we start the second one over, not the bottom one, but the second one over, literally if you lay down your round brush and push it into the dirt or the sand that you have painted brown, and then push it up and release it. Push it down, go up and release it. Push it and release it. Do that just a few times so that you get the feel of what's gonna happen. And then we're gonna load some more paint. We're not working big right now, we're just working in one little area. So with about 5 times, I made marks where I just scraped right across the canvas. Now, would you add white to your brush? And to do that, I just went in, I picked up white from my cup, and then I went over and I mixed it with the color that I already had on my brush. This is the green and the yellow that's on my brush. Now I lightened it up just a little bit with white. So when you do that, if you'll notice what happens, I'm going right back over exactly where I went a minute ago, and I'm pulling up the grass, but this time it's lighter. But you'll notice we've got all that yellow green behind it. So now we have a bluish green, a yellow green, a golden green, and then we have light coming right in. The grass in this particular area grows a little bit toward the center. So the grasses don't have to go straight up and down. The wind could have blown in and blew the marshes, grasses over just a little bit, and they haven't straightened quite back up yet. That'll be quite interesting if you do it that way. I'm going to start over and I'm going to do the same thing, but this time the colors are going to change just a little bit as we start moving in different directions. So I left some of the gold and that yellow green up at the top, so you can leave that. In the middle, I covered up with yellow green with a little white in it for the last layer. Now I want to add the sandy, murky stuff that comes in. So I'm going to go in and get a little bit of brown and a little bit of black on my brush. And while this is still wet, and that's sort of what we're going to strive for just a little bit, you're not carrying very much paint, but you're going from the brown up to the grass. And you're only going up with a mark that's about 1 inch, maybe even a 1/2 inch. But it changes as you make the mark go up. You've got brown and black, brown and black. And it almost disappears in the green, and that's what we want. We want there to be just subtle changes between the brown and the black and the green. Sometimes, once you add a little bit more black to it, you can see a little bit more of it as you start going up this way. So this is a little more black and a little more brown. We're bringing it up just a little bit higher, but we're doing it in a very gradual fashion so that we don't overplay it. We're doing just ever so slightly till we keep bringing it up till we feel like that it looks the way it needs to. So that's enough of the brown and the gray in that particular area. Now you'll notice what happens as you begin to go down towards the middle of this marsh. You've got a segregation between the black and the brown. So that's the part we're going to work on next. We're going to take the black. It'll have just a smidgen of brown in with it just to start with. We're going to lay down the brush. We're going to take the black. We're going to pull it in so I can see the difference between the brown and the black now. You can see the brown and the black really stand out against each other. There's the black. Now notice how black it is in your inspiration picture through that middle zone. And it goes over about more than halfway of the canvas. But I'm not doing anything painting directly with the tip of my brush. I'm using the side of the brush. I'm going in, I'm putting black. As soon as my black is gone, I'm picking up more black. You have to continually use your brush to load the canvas. To load the paint on your brush so that you can get it on your canvas. It's not just going to hop up there by itself, so you have to continually load. This is the darkest area. You can see it just continues on until it gets almost to the end. So by the time we get there, we're gonna stop with the black, and then we're gonna pick up the brown to do some of the middle section with. So that's the black. Now, without changing anything, just pick up a little brown on your brush. And this time, remember, it's always easier to start with if you wipe off a little bit of the paint on your palette so that you're not carrying too much paint. You can always add it, but it's really hard to start subtracting things if you're scared you have too much. Now look how prominent the brown is right on top of the black. It just lays right on top of it, but it just grows out ever so slightly from the black. And it goes over till you get to about halfway of the canvas, and then the brown is not as prominent anymore. So you can put the brown in the center pretty much and then stop with the brown. Now the brown changes, so what we're going to do, we're going to add yellow ochre into the brown. So now it changes and it gets a little bit lighter. So yellow ochre added right into your brush. We're just going to put it right on top of the black as we go this way. We're just going to lay yellow ochre right on top of the black as we move toward the end of the canvas. A little more gold, and when we get all the way to the end of the canvas, you're going to pass the black and you're going to go down a little bit more. Now that begins to make the murky place that we need so our grass can grow right out of that area. So we go all the way down with the brownish color. It has a little black in it, has a little gold in it. Anything that you pick up on your brush is going to be great as long as it's a little dark in that particular area. Now pick up just a little bit of blue. At this point you might want to use a little bit of the darker blue. And watch what's going to happen when I pick up and put some of the dark blue in. I'm going to add it right in between the brown and the black and just put a little bit of the blue color there. And that's all I want. I'm not going to put it everywhere. I'm just going to lay it down just a little bit and leave some of the blue showing. This is all about color and texture and how to enhance the picture the most. Now, as soon as I get that dark blue in, I'm actually going to pick up some light blue, a smidgen, and putting a smidgen on your brush and then blending it out with the on the palette with your brush allows you to carry just a little bit on your brush, and so you can just barely touch it, just barely touch the canvas and sweep it that across direction, okay?
Dark blue.
I did light blue first, and then I put a little bit of the light blue on top of it just to enhance it, just a little bit. But now we're going back to the greens and the yellows that we started with. And we'll tie this island together so that you can see what it looks like. So with the blue that's already on your brush, just take the cad yellow, the cadmium yellow, and mix so that you have a new color. So it's now a medium green kind of color that looks like this. It can be any shade of green, but I just added yellow to the blue, and now I have a different shade. So now what I want to do is, I don't want to carry too much paint, but I want to lay in a few strokes of this green. I don't want to cover up the color that's underneath it. I want to leave it showing through, but I'm just patching up the divide, literally, between the greens and the browns. I'm just going through and literally weaving those colors together, picking up some green and laying it, pushing it out towards the middle. So yellow-green, and just pushing out the greens. And once I get all the way across and all the way down, I'm going to pick up more yellow, and this time I'm going to add white in with it. So now it's more yellow than green, and it is lighter. It has a little bit of the white in it, but not too much, but a little. So now, and if you'll look at your inspiration piece, you can see where we're going. Now I'm going to use the tip of the brush literally to make the top part that's a little on the pointy side more than we've done before. In this grass, we haven't made any illusions about it being spiky grass or tall grass. We're going to do that a little bit because now instead of using the side of the brush laying down on the canvas and spreading it out, we're going to use more of the point of it. So now with a little more white on your brush and the yellow, if you'll start here, and as you start bringing up the grass, you show or you allow that point to actually spike at the end and be a little bit on the pointed side. We don't want like every little, blade of grass to show, but we want that little yellowy point to come up and start overlapping the water that's right there in that space. So pull some of those lines over. So as you're using the very point of the brush, you need to keep dipping your brush in the water to keep it flowing, because that's the way you operate with the point on the brush. Dip it in water, roll it in the palette. You literally want to you want to scoop white up, you want to roll it in the yellow, you want to twist your brush around so that you get a point on the end of your brush, and then you want to start using that point to grow the grass that's going to come up from all the murky stuff that you just put in there. So sometimes it's a little more golden, sometimes it's a little greener. You just continue to go to, sure. You just continue to pull up the green until your grass begins to grow right out of the island, the marsh, the space where the grass is. So you're doing a little bit more with the point here than we've done in any of the other places. But as long as you stay in the colors that we have, the more you use your brush to bring out the point, the better you're going to like the marsh. And do it with like little quick gestures. You don't need to make one blade of grass at a time. You really just need a direction of it going upward. Just a little direction of it going upward. Just a little direction. And the more you play with it, the better you're going to like what the points or what the grass is doing, what it looks like. Sometimes you can go back now and get a little bit more of the green. Sometimes you might have to get a little bit more of the white and mix it with the yellow. So you're doing a combination of all the colors that we've played with. And you just repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. And then you have, turn it up and look, and you have the marsh grass just coming right up out of the island, just like you need it. We're not going to overwork it. We're going to stop on that part, and we're going to move to another. And then at the end, you can come back and put as many strokes as you want. But right now, we're going to start on the one that's right behind it, where this mound is. So now that you have this brown area. You're gonna start with that, but this time we're not gonna use black because we don't need it. We already have this much of the color in that's dark where the ground is. So we're gonna take the medium green that we started with in here. We're gonna add yellow to it. You can actually add yellow ochre to it or yellow. Either one will work, or both. We're gonna start right here in this middle area. Because we've already got enough of the blacky gray color, we're gonna turn that brush on its side a little bit, and we're gonna pull a few of the colors up like this. We're just gonna, every time we go up, the streaks are getting shorter, and they're also getting very less pointed to the viewer so that we know it's further away. So this time, the grass is not going to be as showy as it was in this part. So a little bit of yellow and yellow ochre mixed in with that medium green. Just pull the lines right across. And then all you have to do is add white to it. And then you go for the little pointed grass coming right across the top. So now here comes the little points. If you do it quickly and while it's wet, it's real easy to get a good blend. Just keep dipping your brush in the water. This time you're picking up a little white and you're brushing right across with the yellow and the green on it. And you can see if you overlap that water just a little bit, you can see how nice it looks in the distance, but it's a smidgen of white right mixed in with the color that's on your brush. You do a couple of little streaks and that part is done. And you can see how it looks when you get that light color in. So now you've got lights, mediums, and then you've got the dark underneath. So now we're going to go to another one. The ones that we're going to do up here at the top, they're very small, little tiny sections of grass. We are going to start with the medium green again first to do this one. We've got medium green. We're just going to go right on top of the brown, put a few strokes. These are short, going about halfway up in this area. So it's greenish with yellow ochre in it. And see how it's very uneven because that's the way the marsh runs. So literally I'm just dab, dab, dab and getting a little bit of green going right over all that golden color.
And it's green and what?
Yellow ochre. Green and yellow ochre. And you just run all the way across. When you get to a place where it changes over and Y's out, just go one way or the other, and then the next time you go the other way. It's no big deal. I just took medium green, went all the way across with some yellow ochre in it. And now I'll go back to the same thing. I'm adding white to the brush, and I'm putting more yellow and white right over where I just went. And this time the grass is fanning right across. You can see the little white grasses coming right over all the other colors that are in there. This is where it overlaps. Sometimes you can put a little bit more gold, and sometimes you can put a little more white. You can mix the green. If you work quick enough with that green being down there and being wet, you can get a little bit of blend with that. But little short, little strokes going all the way across. And they don't have to be even. And they literally, by the time you get over here, do not have to be everywhere. Because some of these places do not have any of the grass standing up. It's just laying down. Or it's so far away that you can't see that it's actually standing up. because of the distance, so don't worry about that. Now these two that are in the center where we have the white part that came together, the two that we have in the middle, we're gonna add the yellow and the green. This time, instead of a lot of green, we're going mostly yellow in here. We want this to be a little bit different, but watch how the green grass shows up on that gold color. See how it just pops out? Just one grass stroke at a time. You just pull it right across. When you get over the water, just let it go in and come right up and overlap the water.
And what color is that?
Mostly yellow ochre and a smidgen of green. Mostly yellow ochre, but a smidgen of green. We got a lot of yellow back there, so it doesn't take much of the green for it to really show up. And then we're gonna follow the exact same thing for the one up underneath it, except we're gonna add a little more white to it right here. And you can tell it, when you add the white to it, you can see it changes and gives you another sense of depth because the color is different. So all I did was put white right into the green and the gold ochre color that I had. And now I'm just pulling those streaks across. So now we have a lot of grass overlapping in the water so that it's very marsh-like. You can certainly come back in like where you can add white in some other places a little bit stronger. So like right in the very center of the canvas where the, think about where the sunlight's coming in, I'm gonna take a little bit of white and add it to what I already had on my brush. It's just a matter of adding to what you already have. I'm lightening it up and I'm not going all the way across the island. I'm just putting a little bit of the light color right in the center. So it's not like long panes of grass that are exactly alike. I'm changing every time I go into a different space. So now that's the perfect color that I want to come down to get this little island that's in the front of this largest island that we started with over here where all this black is. We're going to overlap a little bit, but this is going to be sort of a grayish green. So with the color that's on my brush, literally, I'm going to add a smidgen of brown, just a smidgen. So now the yellow ochre and white go a little browner, a smidgen of brown, and then literally a smidgen of black, but the smallest little amount that you can come up with. Because if you'll notice, what I want this to do is I don't want it to be in the green family as much as I want it to be in the brown family. So the grass is it's a little smaller area, and the green grass is not there quite so much as the brown and tan kind of grasses are. So that's the color that I'm using in this space. So I literally have yellow ochre and white, and then I added a little brown and black, and now I'm really using almost the gray color that I had originally, except it's lighter. And so now I'm just coming along and giving it grass. Same way, just quick little gestures of paint, and then that one is complete. This is a painting that you could work on forever when it comes to the grasses. So you'll have a real good start tonight on a painting. It could be finished, but you could always add more and more layers. But with the technique you have here, you'll be able to do anything you want to with it. Now, after this grayish color is in, what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of blue. If we put the blue into the gray color, you can see it changes it just enough so we can put some of the bluish gray in the middle, and then the island, once again, doesn't have just all the same color. So I went across the first time and had just the yellow mixed in with the brown. And, you know, it had a good bit of white in it, but remember I put a little black so it could turn gray. And now all I did was just add a little blue to it. So now it has a bluish color in some places, but not everywhere. And of course that leads us to we're going with the very last one that's going to overlap in the front. And these will actually be the tallest grasses, but they'll be the bluest grasses too. So you're going to put the light blue into the pile that you're still working on, and then you're just going to add a little white to it. So that's the fun thing about this. You don't really change colors. You just keep adding it to it till you keep it unified. But I'm putting water on my brush because I want it to really make a point on the end. So to the pile that had the brown and the black and the white in it, I added blue. And then I lightened it up just a little bit. This is going to be sort of a bluer grass. And it's going to come in on the very last section that we call the foreground. And literally that color is just going to come in from the bottom of the canvas up. So it's going to go from the bottom of the canvas up, and it's going to overlap the water over here on this top side, but not everywhere. So you can add white as much as you want to begin to lighten it up. You can see all that beautiful gold and green up underneath. Now we're going just a little bit on the grayish blue side. And on this corner, we're going to begin to cover and overlap the water. And then we'll just continue down until all the ground is covered. And I'm just adding more white to the brush as I go in this area. So it's a lighter. And with so many colors on your brush, you can see how beautiful all the colors change every time you pull a stroke. And when you get about halfway across, you'll probably want to add a little bit more white to it. And it'll begin to be a little more of a bluish gray as you keep that going. And then you'll be through with the grass once you get to that point. And then it's a matter of you playing with a few of the other colors. For instance, even the aqua green that we haven't used, if I put a little bit of that on the tip of my brush, I get water, put a little bit of the aqua green. Now watch how this can make this color really stand out. You don't think about it, but look how it can just pop. And you can do it at a few places throughout the canvas. You don't have to use very much in any one space, but just a little bit of the aqua green gives it a little pick-me-up, a little color, a little life that you don't get with some of the other colors. So that's adding a little bit of the aqua, but once again, I added it to what was already on my brush, and I just dipped the brush in the water, and then I'm using the same stroke that I used all the way through all the grasses, and just every once in a while put a little bit of the aqua in there. You can do now the same thing for like the yellow green. You could pick up just a smidgen of the yellow green and just touch that in a few places. Just a little. it, of course. I think we'll finish up with a smidgen of brown. I added a little bit of brown to the blue, so it's now a brownish gray color. And I want to come right in on the bottom of the canvas, and I want to make strokes right across the bottom with the brownish color, so that way it feels darker and heavier, and it's streaky. So you can see how the brown just comes right in and ties all the brown lines that we have together. And that's literally what we're doing. We're just using some of the brown to make sure that we don't have too many open spaces down there, because there's a lot of grass in that area. We want it to be pretty full. You can have it really so full that you don't even see any of the island behind it if you want to. But it just depends on how many strokes that you want to make of grass.